Hi friends, my channel is called Minivan Muse. I travel in my 2023 Honda Odyssey named Betty White, and we travel around the country to beautiful places, interesting places, and I'm happy that you're here to travel along with us. Hey friends, welcome to the next video in my series of videos that's kind of counting down to my summer trip. Today we are going to get more specific about planning the trips, the stops, where do I stop when I'm on my trip, just some suggestions about how to kind of set that up. Let's get started. We are now 7 weeks away from leaving for the trip. In the first video, we kind of looked at the big picture, the first look at the map book, kind of deciding what main interstates, primary interstates I'd be taking. This week, I have more stuff to talk about. Keep in mind, I'm a teacher. If I sound like a teacher, I'm sorry. I have broken down my summer trip into 3 legs of the trip. The first leg is to get from SoCal to New York, where I'm going to be staying a few days with a really good friend. The second leg of the trip will be me leaving from New York and roam around New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and go to Acadia National Park, and then to get back to New York, hang out with my friend for a few more days, and then to get home. Getting home from New York will be the third leg of the trip. So, the first leg of the trip, I have looked at a distance calculator, which is something I highly recommend when you're planning a trip. You got to know how long it is. So the first leg of the trip, 2,600 miles. The second leg of the trip, New York to Maine and back to New York, 1,200 miles. And then the third leg, of course, 2,600 miles to come back. Next, I'm going to kind of talk about my process. The first thing that I think about is, how many miles per day can I drive? And a person doesn't really find that out until they go on some trips. I have come to find that I can do 400 miles a day. I can do more, but I'm really tired after 400. Some people may not do 400. So if I'm going 2,600 miles, I figure that I can do that in 7 days. So the next thing I do is I want to identify the end points, the stopping points, where I'm going to sleep each night of that first leg of the trip. You'll forgive me, but for safety purposes, I'm not going to share what those daily endpoints are, but trust me, I have plotted them out, and they are 400 miles apart. As I mentioned in the first video, the point of this is not necessarily to be like California to New York on the interstate all the time with no breaks from that, because being on the interstate for days and days and days is really boring. So the next thing I thought of is, can I build in some side trips to get a break from the interstate, but keeps me going in the right direction, that doesn't take me, huge miles out of my way. What I do for that is I look at, usually it's something in the mountains, it's something I want to, drive through the mountains a little bit. Mountain driving can be tiring if it's a lot of twists and turns, but it's just beautiful. And, anywhere higher in elevation, if you're traveling in the summer, you'll get a little break from the heat. I have put in to my first leg of the trip 1 day where I will be off the interstate and kind of on a side trip, I call it. The next thing I do when I see a cool kind of side trip or mountainous highway that I might want to check out is I watch YouTube videos about people going through those areas, because I want to know, what is the road like? What is the scenery like? It doesn't spoil the surprise. It just gives you information about what that's going to possibly look like. I will give you an example of a side trip I wanted to take, but it's not going to turn out, is Rocky Mountain National Park, I think. It's in Colorado. So I thought that might be a nice side trip. Then when I got on YouTube, I found out that I think it's Highway 34 in Colorado. There's timed entrances where you can drive through the park, and you have to have a reservation and drive through at a certain time. And I was like, I don't want to mess with that. So I decided on a different side trip. So I got 7 days planned with 1 day of kind of mountainous driving to get a break from the interstate. So the next thing that I have done is, where am I going to sleep? I would recommend at least 3 options, and really as many as 5 if I needed them, for where I'm going to stop and sleep. So I wanted to go over those. Plan A for me is rest areas, interstate rest areas. There are a number of ways to find them. In the map that I have, the Rand McNally, you can see that's like a blue, I think it's like a telephone maybe, a blue symbol on the map where you can see where the rest areas are. Another way that you can find rest areas is using this book. This book is called The Next Exit. I love this book. I used it a lot on my first cross-country trip. It has every interstate in the U.S., and what it does is it tells you what businesses are at each exit on the interstate. Finally, if we want to come up to more modern times, there are a number of apps that I have on my phone that can also be used to find rest areas. One is called USA Rest Stops. The second one is called the letter I, Exit. And the third is called Trucker Path. And these are apps. So by either looking at the symbols on the map, using the Next Exit book, or using the rest area apps, I find rest areas. And I've plotted them out 400 miles apart. I've slept at dozens of rest areas in the last 2 years, and I've only left 2 of them because I thought it was a little sketch. But 99% of the time, I think they're great. They are well lit, there are bathrooms there, and there's other people there. And there's people in vehicles, but also, 18-wheelers. These people, these men and women, I really have a lot of respect for them because they're out on the road away from their families, and that's their job. So I always feel safe when there are other people around doing what I'm doing. They're not there like hanging out. Nobody's there like hanging out trying to hit on people at a rest area. I've just never seen that before. Plan B for a nightly stop for me would be a truck stop. Not my favorite, but it's a good plan B, and there's a lot of them out there. The main ones are, you've probably heard of them. Sorry, this is SoCal for you. Police and helicopters outside. Wow. Something's really going on outside. Anyway, the Pilot, and Loves, and Flying J. These are the main 3, I think, chain truck stops. And in this Next Exit book, it shows all of the truck stops, which is a really great thing. What's the benefit of a truck stop? Bathrooms, of course, and at many of them, you can take a shower. Now, these showers are not cheap. I think I paid $15 or $18 to take a shower at a Love's one time. But hey, any port in the storm if you need a shower, and if it's affordable for your budget. So truck stops would be a plan B for me. Bathrooms, showers, and of course gas and food if you need it. Plan C for me could be a campground. Just because I'm trying to get from point A to point B doesn't mean I wouldn't entertain the idea of a campground. There are national campgrounds, state parks, private, like the KOAs and stuff like that. I haven't stayed at a KOA, but I have stayed at a few private campgrounds before. What's the upside of one of those? Showers, right? And at many of them, power. Run my air conditioner, run my rice cooker, recharge my power banks. So campgrounds is always a good option, although this is an option that you'd have to pay for. Plan D. If I ever got to Plan D, where I was like, wow, none of any of this around. But remember, I have planned this out so that there's usually a rest area where I'm stopping after 400 miles. I planned it out like that. But Plan D would be a hotel. I understand not everybody can financially. And what's the upside of a hotel? I mean, a private room with a bathroom and a shower and power and ice and all of that. And then finally, I was trying to think, is there anything else I could put on the list? And for the last one, Plan E, I put other, maybe something like a hip camp or a harvest host. I think the harvest host won't take you if you, or maybe it's the hip. They both start with H, so I can never remember. But I think one of them, they won't take you if you don't have like an RV, like a proper toilet. Don't quote me on that. Maybe you can mention in the comments which one. 400-mile increments, and at each stop after 400 miles, there is a rest area. But I also have Plan B, Plan C, Plan D in case I need it. Now, the second leg of my trip, so I get to New York, hang out with my friend for a few days, and then I'm going to go to Maine, and I'm going to come back. That's the second leg of the trip. Now, this is a little bit different because this is an area of the country I have never been in on a road trip. So what I did for the second leg of the trip, because it's only 600 miles there and back, but I'm not doing that in, like 3 days. I'm going to be spending more time I've noticed in the New England, while there are interstates, I mean, there's many more things I'd like to see that are off the beaten path. So I have identified some points of attraction, things that I want to see. Acadia National Park is one of them. I'm going to be definitely spending more time in non-interstate, kind of going across the state. You need smaller roads for that because there isn't an interstate that goes like straight across from New York to Maine. You just don't have that. So it's going to be a lot of smaller state routes, which is very exciting. But I'm looking for points of attraction that I'm really interested in. I haven't nailed all those down yet. I may talk about that more in a future video. And I will try, although of course, unlike the West Coast that's much more mountainous, try to travel when I can through any higher elevation areas, because then it might be cooler. And in this leg of the trip, I'm not aiming for like 400 miles a day. I'm just not doing that. So I'm aiming at more like maybe 200 miles a day so that I can see more points of attraction and really investigate that area of the country. But my end points for each of those days in the second leg, there isn't a rest area at every stop. So I will have to go with Plan B, truck stops, or C. I'm going to look at what campgrounds are in the area, maybe make a reservation, and then I have the ability to get a hotel if I needed to. Or I could look for like a hip camp, harvest host, or something like that. So that second leg of the trip is going to be about a week, and then I'll be back in New York, hang out with my friend for a few days. And then the third leg of the trip is from New York back home. I haven't done my 400 mile a day thing. I haven't done that yet because on the way back, it will be a bit more leisurely at that point. I estimate I'll have 10 or 12 days to get home. So I can definitely take it more leisurely and I don't have to be, buzzing through 400 miles a day. There are a few points of attraction that I want to see on the way home that I will share with you. Mount Rushmore, the Crazy Horse Memorial, Devil's Tower, the Dinosaur National Monument, Badlands National Park, and maybe, depending on how hot it's going to be, the Loneliest Road, Highway 50 through Nevada. These are some of the points of attraction that I want to see, and I'm going to plan my third leg of the trip around so that I can get to some of these places. Possibly the UP Upper Peninsula of Michigan, possibly. So this coming week, I'll be doing a little bit more planning on that third leg of the trip. It might even include a rest day where I'm not driving at all. Some people might think this whole road trip you're doing is just drive, 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 drive. To me, that's relaxing. Anything where I'm not at work is relaxing. But there might even be a rest day in there somewhere. All right, well, that's a handful. Next week, I'm going to do an updated tour of the minivan. I have made, since my spring break trip, I have made some small improvements that are pretty cool, all done by myself with my saw and my drill and my, crazy imagination. So next week, we'll have a new tour of Betty. And a friend of mine is going to help me to video it, so hopefully it'll look nicer than maybe my last van tour. All right, I'm really having a lot of fun with this. Thanks everybody for subscribing. We'll see you next week.